This is the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. For everyone who's trying to learn Chinese or reaching for the next level, you came to the right place. I am your host, Jared Turner.
And I've realized that common sense is a lot like deodorant. The people who need it most tend to be the ones not using it. My co-host is John Pasden, and in the interest of time, he's now drinking condensed milk. Let's get to it.
Hey guys, this is Jared Turner joining you here from Utah in the United States.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Pasden, and I am in Shanghai, China.
All right, John, we are staring down the barrel of Chinese New Year 2026.
Yeah, I'm looking for a little bit of time off because, in China, we take our Chinese New Year pretty seriously.
I know. How long are you taking off this year?
3 weeks or so, something like that.
Sounds about right. Pretty healthy amount of time.
It's not totally off, but it's definitely not a regular work schedule.
It's interesting when I'm talking to other people about the Chinese New Year. I'm like, hey, you got to realize, man, China could shut down for it's like almost like a month. Not much gets done.
Nah, in Shanghai, it's not like that because a lot of people don't have that much time off. Like my wife only has like 10 days off. So, but kids get a lot more time than 10 days off of school, most of them.
Yeah. Anyway, it's good times. Good times. Well,
all right. So anyway, today we want to talk about audio and getting the most out of your audio because, nowadays there's so many like useful and pretty easy to use AI tools out there. And I personally have been using them a lot for like the past 2 years, both for English and for Chinese. And a lot of them, like you guys could be using too.
So, all right, you're talking about audio using AI tools. So maybe you could clarify, John, exactly what it is you're talking about.
All right, so we're going to look at some different kinds of media, that have audio. And the situation is a little bit different for each of them. And, depending on your studies, you might be more interested in certain types of media, whether it's podcasts or YouTube videos or movies or songs. And we're going to talk about like some of the audio issues related to those, and then how we can learn more Chinese using certain tools in conjunction with that audio.
Great. So I think something that will help our listeners on this is like, let's break down the kind of general workflow that we're talking about here on how to do this. I think it'll make it a lot more clear.
All right. So if you've got audio, then you probably want a transcript.
Chinese audio, right?
Right. Well, any audio, really, if you're trying to learn from it.
Could be Malay or something, right?
Yeah, and I do this for Italian too. So it doesn't matter what the language is. And gone are the days of having to type out a transcript. There's plenty of AI tools for it. I use one called TurboScribe. There's different ones that use like this Whisper AI transcription technology. And a lot of them give you some transcriptions for free. And so you can just upload your audio. And then it takes maybe a few minutes, depending on how long the audio is. And then you can download that text as a text file, a Word document, a PDF, different formats.
So I'll clarify that. So, get the audio. Could be on YouTube, could be on something else, but you can download that audio. There's a lot of different ways to extract that audio file, right? Put it into a transcription tool. Then you got the text from the audio. And then now what?
And the text you get, it might be just plain text, depending on the tool you use, or it could have times like that syncs with the video, and that can be useful to have as well.
A lot of those, it was SRT files that are the files that are used for subtitles, in different videos. Those can be attached to things.
Right, and SRT files, if you're not too familiar with them, they're really just text files. So you can open them up with like lots of different text editors. You can rename them to a .txt file if you need to, and it's just text with times, just to make sure that you're opening it up in the right encoding so that you can read Chinese.
Yeah, so I'm aware, and I've heard from a friend who knows that, sometimes if there's those peer-to-peer downloading software things, those SRT files often accompany those video files that are downloaded.
Yes, this is true. And there are websites just devoted to subtitle files. There's tons of them.
And so that's actually interesting because there may be like a TV show or a movie or something that you're interested in. Maybe you can just go find that SRT file without even having to do any of this audio downloading.
That is true. And I even know people that maybe they want to study the Chinese SRT files for an English language movie or TV show. And hey, if that interests you, you can do that too.
Great, great. Okay, so now we have a text version of the audio. That's basically now where we're at. What's next?
Well, I think for a lot of people, that's enough, and that's super useful because once you have the electronic text, then you can copy and paste. You can use Google Translate, you put it in flashcards, you can do all kinds of things with the electronic text.
Great.
Now, if you want to go even beyond that, you could even use this electronic text and then use some kind of AI text-to-speech tool and then generate audio. So you're not generating the same audio, obviously, as you got the transcript from. You're maybe generating something that's a little slower, a little clearer, maybe slight variations. And the idea is that hearing it in a different voice, maybe a different pace, could be helpful as well.
I don't think it just could be helpful. I think it's very likely to be helpful. As we know, listening skills, that just takes a lot of time to develop. And if you're not used to listening to Chinese, if you feel like, your listening is one of the areas when you struggle, I mean, having that very clear, defined audio that AI can create, John, as we were talking about this topic, that's almost like your training wheels, right? Before you go into the original audio.
Right, exactly. But the only thing about that is it's a little bit of a trade-off because generating audio from text, it can be a bit of a pain. You have to find a voice you like. Sometimes there are, little technical issues. But if it's something that you really want and maybe there's a certain piece of content, a certain show, a certain movie or whatever that you really want to generate the text for, then that can be a great addition to your study materials.
Well, I think overall, it's really an amazing idea that you could even do this. And I think for anyone who's going to try this, there's definitely going to be a little bit of work in figuring out, the workflow on how you're actually going to make this work. You got to kind of piece a few things together to make it work. But I think that there are really substantial payoffs for people who are going to use this to really improve their Chinese and especially their listening.
Oh, and actually, Jared, I want to give a little shout out to Language Jones. That's a YouTube channel, a linguist who talks about various language learning issues sometimes. And he's a fan of Anki, the flashcard app. And I think this is what actually got me thinking about this topic. Anki has this optional plugin or extension, or whatever you call it. It's called Hyper TTS. So TTS meaning text to speech. And so it can support taking like the sample sentences that you add to your Anki flashcards and then auto-generating like AI speech for your text, like within Anki.
Oh, interesting. That sounds great.
So I haven't actually used this, but Language Jones, he's quite a credible source. And I did look it up and it looks pretty cool.
Let's hear for Language Jones.
All right. So now we're going to look at some specific types of media and then talk about how all this relates to those in particular, right?
Yeah. So I think the first one we were going to talk about here is like movies and TV shows. This is always a good place to start. Often these are popular media and there might be things in this area you're more aware of because, they become more popular and they might be more entertaining.
Yeah, and if there's a movie that you like or a TV series that you like, then by all means, try to get the transcription. You should be able to download the SRT files. Like when it comes to movies and TV shows, you shouldn't have to generate your own transcription. Like it's kind of overkill and unnecessary for this particular form of media.
So this could potentially be lower hanging fruit, so to speak, a little bit easier to get going with movies and TV shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I think a good question to bring up here is that we're not necessarily talking just about Chinese movies and TV shows. These could be TV shows and movies that might be in English or some other language, but they have Chinese dub or just Chinese subtitles.
Yeah, this is actually something I've used before. Like if I'm watching a TV show in English, sometimes my wife will watch it with me, or sometimes we'll watch it separately because she wants to watch it in Chinese and I want to watch it in English. But if I look at the Chinese transcript, then I can discuss it with her in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So like if there's a show, like Actually, one of the ones that I always hear Chinese people talk about using to study English is the TV show Friends.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I use Xiaomi TV, the smart TV in my home. And when I go into TV shows and I sort by most popular, like of all time, the Friends, every season of Friends is at the top of the list of, it's competing with Chinese TV shows, but Friends is at the top of the list in China. Like, I don't know why, but Friends has a popularity that endures in China.
I'm actually surprised because, John, I was actually thinking about this, preparing for the topic, and I came to China in 2010, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I watched Friends, I've watched all of that," yeah, and it was super popular then. Well, we're 16 years later, and it's still super popular.
Yeah,
and even in 2010, it was a little bit. I mean, they weren't producing Friends anymore. It was the season was over, right? But
it's pretty old. Yeah, but anyway, you can definitely get good Chinese translations of Friends episodes if you want to talk to Chinese friends about Friends. Maybe you want something newer, but little warning, you might not know this, Jared. If you watch the Friends episodes through something like Xiaomi, like a Chinese media channel, I've noticed that some episodes do have little parts cut out. There might be some conversations that are a little too spicy for Chinese audiences, apparently, and they get cut out.
Yes, sensitive viewers.
Yeah, I don't think it's the viewers, but anyway.
Well, cool. That's great. So I think, it sounds like, movies, TV shows, this is like low-hanging fruit, and it's oftentimes stuff that people are really interested in. So this sounds like a great opportunity.
And once you get the text, you could generate audio from that, but I don't think this is one of the best uses for that particular trick.
So I guess what are we suggesting then? So is it more of, hey, let's kind of look through the transcript, let's try to study that or understand the transcript first, identify words or phrases, things we don't know, and then go back and listen to it?
Yeah, so both of those. You might have watched the movie originally, like either in English or with English subtitles, and you just loved it, and you want to be able to understand it in Chinese. That's one scenario. Another is you're just working on your Chinese and you just want to find some show that you can probably understand. And, maybe you get the transcript in advance and you study it so that you can follow it more easily. Maybe you watch each episode a couple times, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really great. And for these types of shows and movies, you're not necessarily suggesting let's go use AI to recreate the audio at a slower pace.
Probably not.
Great. Well, all right then. So let's talk about the next one is songs.
All right, so songs. For these, you're probably going to try to find the lyrics online. You're probably not going to want to use AI to transcribe that. Might not work so well, even if you tried. But I feel like when it comes to song lyrics, because they're sung and you don't really hear the tones like you normally do, it is kind of cool to convert lyrics into just regular speech so that you can hear those words like with their normal spoken tones.
Yeah, and there are some songs like that which, can be useful in everyday speech. This is a pretty good example coming up right here, your favorite song, John. 对不起，我的中文不好。对不起，对不起，我不知道你说什么。对不起，我的中文不好。对不起，对不起，我只想跟你当朋友。This is a phrase you need to learn in China, right?
No, you don't need to learn that.
But your Chinese is bad. I mean, it was, right? At least.
Yeah, I kind of subscribe to the be bold, no apologies, just do your best to communicate in Chinese. Jared subscribes to the endless apology, philosophy. Choose your own adventure.
You're just going full Trump, doubling down. No, this is how it's said.
I never go Trump. All right, but I was thinking more of Chinese songs by Chinese people, but whatever.
Hey, but there's a lot of great songs out there. I mean, whatever you are interested in, you can delve into the whole ecosphere of Chinese songs out there. You'd be surprised. There's stuff out there you're probably going to like.
I don't normally just go looking for Chinese songs that I like, but I recently encountered an unlikely source of good Chinese songs, and that is my daughter's guitar teacher. For some reason, the songs that he chooses for her to learn to play on guitar are so good. Just recently, my daughter's been getting better and better at guitar. So I've been hearing some really good Chinese songs. So yeah,
Wow.
they're out there.
No, that's great. And I will note then, it's also pretty easy to find lyrics of songs.
Right. You can find those online. You just need to know the name and the singer. One thing I should warn you, though, and this is pretty obvious if you think about it, but some songs are very poetic. They're not at all like spoken language. And other songs are much closer to spoken language. So if you can't tell, that's the kind of thing you're probably going to want to talk to a teacher about, or at least a native speaker.
And before we move on, John, I should note that song I played is a song by a band called Transition called 对不起，我的中文不好.
All right.
It's a classic. You're going to love it.
Although along those lines, Jared, I do kind of like the One Semester of Spanish Love Song. That's a classic.
Oh, I have never heard of that one, but it sounds good. Just the title sounds great.
Well, if you've had one semester of Spanish, you will find the lyrics familiar.
All right. So the next one we're talking about now, podcasts. Podcasts in Chinese.
Yeah. And the reason podcasts are so great is that one, they're natural language. Two, there's tons of them and they're free. You just got to be able to find them in Chinese, right? And then three, it's now easy to transcribe all that natural spoken speech using AI tools.
Yes. I should also add to that it's very easy to download the audio file if you need to.
And if you want to transcribe it, you probably will need to if you want your own transcription.
But podcasting applications like Spotify do auto-generate transcripts as well. So if you can get that podcast on Spotify, it might be already there. And there are other podcasting apps which now are doing that as well.
Right. I don't actually use Spotify. But if you want to do your own transcriptions, it's definitely easier to do like on a laptop or desktop computer, like on your phone. I'm sure it's possible, but it's probably easier to do on a more traditional computer.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But in the subject, though, of podcasts specifically, what are some of the advantages that you see using this method to learn Chinese through podcasts?
Well, I was just mentioning that song lyrics can be kind of poetic, so it's not like spoken Chinese. But similarly, like in a lot of TV series and movies, they're very dramatic. And so people aren't really saying a lot of their everyday types of words and phrases. Whereas with podcasts, of course, it does depend on what podcast it is. If you're listening to, Chinese podcast on theoretical physics, it's going to be different from others, but you can find very common everyday type speech. You can find different accents and just the choice out there. You might need some help finding it actually, depending on your level, but you can find some really great stuff, very natural.
And I think this is the really important point that you are bringing up. And just, I think, put a little finer point on that is that if you want to learn Chinese in a specific vocabulary of a specific area, it could be if it's a hobby, an interest, or someplace you're going, or maybe something related to like your job or whatever you're interested in. It's very, very likely you can find a podcast about that. And then by listening to a podcast about that specific topic, you're going to be exposed and encounter all sorts of specific vocabulary and words and phrases and sayings and discussions about that topic. So it's an excellent way to really, focus your learning in some sort of specific area.
Yes, absolutely. And I also have a friend who his favorite podcast is a Taiwanese podcast. He used to live in Taiwan. Now he lives in Shanghai. And so he's able to kind of get regular exposure to just the way that the Taiwanese speak now in 2026. And you can do the same thing for, Beijing, Shanghai, all kinds of places. And so that's another great benefit of podcasts.
Yeah. So I think this is definitely one that shouldn't be overlooked. I think that overall, though, I will say, I think the podcast one is going to be probably not for the beginners, right? Most of this may not be exactly for beginners, but podcasts, I think, is when you probably got some level of competency in Chinese and you're ready to really drill down in an area.
Yeah, that's true. There are some simple ones, but you're probably going to be around the intermediate level before you really start delving into podcasts. And even then, you got to be brave.
But, I just said that, John, and you have to mention it's true. There are some podcasts for learners that are going to be simple. But I think in general, what we're talking about here is just accessing these native level Chinese podcasts.
Yeah, and this is part of the point of this podcast. Like, because these transcription tools are out there, the things that you might have felt were hopeless before are not exactly hopeless now, because you can get that transcript, you can break it down. If you really want to learn this kind of material, you actually can more easily than before.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's go on our next one then. We're talking about YouTube educational content.
So, there are videos for learning all kinds of things on YouTube, including Chinese, but we're talking about also stuff that's native Chinese level. And a lot of times on YouTube, there already are the closed captions or the subtitles generated by YouTube, right?
That's right. And I can walk you through this a little bit because I have played around with this, John. So, I mentioned earlier, like there's the Kaiduan Reset. That was a popular TV show. Well, you can get that all over YouTube. But when someone uploads a video to YouTube, they can select the option to auto-generate captions. And some people do not allow that, but most people do. And if that is enabled on that video, and you can't control that, unfortunately, then you now have access to an auto-generated transcript. So this skips a whole bunch of steps, right? That we don't have to, download any video and put it to anything else. So here's what I will note is that if you are a native English speaker, you're looking at a Chinese video, it'll oftentimes default to English captions. So what you have to go in a YouTube video is there's that little gearbox. We can adjust the settings for that video. Yeah, you can go in there and change the language to Chinese. And then it should give you that Chinese transcription. Sometimes getting the transcriptions in YouTube is a little, I'm not say onerous, but it's just not always apparent. You usually got to go into the episode description, click down there and scroll down, and then there's the transcript. And you can click on that and it opens up in a side window. This works much better on a desktop, not as well on a phone. But then you have an auto-generated transcript with timestamps, and you can then do your worst.
Yeah, so these transcripts should be pretty good because they're generated, by Google using Google's AI, you would think. However, if you're looking at a pretty old video, the quality of the transcript might not be quite as good. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So YouTube is a goldmine, right? And you can get all sorts of educational videos, right? But as you're saying, John, hey, we can pretty much get all sorts of content.
Now, if it does not enable these automated transcripts, closed captions, or whatever, it's also still possible to download a YouTube video and then run that through one of these AI speech-to-text transcript generators.
And I'll amend that just a little bit because the truth is you don't have to download the video. You just have to download the audio from the video.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these tools available online where you can put the link in for the YouTube and, you can extract the audio. And that's all you would need to do.
In the past, there have been like Firefox extensions that let you do it. And there have also been types of software. I got to say, though, some of these are kind of sketchy.
Yeah,
so we don't
careful.
really want to recommend anything in particular.
Could be a risky click, right?
Yeah.
I will say in general, Reddit usually points you in the right direction. If you just search like YouTube video downloader Reddit, you can find some threads and everyone's like saying, yeah, this is the one, or don't use that one. That one's sketchy, right?
Yeah, YouTube doesn't want you to download their videos unless you pay them for it. But, if it's in the name of education, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah, what could go wrong, right? But yeah, this is an overall wonderful idea, John. Like I said, there's a lot of people creating educational content in Chinese there. So it's a gold mine. And the fact that you can get that transcript and learn from it and listen, it's a big deal.
Okay, and then finally, this is not on YouTube, but it's something that is quite useful, and it also uses AI, which is recording yourself speaking Chinese and then transcribing it. Or you could just do the native, voice input that a lot of apps and different programs use nowadays. And if your Chinese pronunciation is pretty decent, then the app should understand what you're saying and output the correct characters for what you're saying.
And if your Chinese is not so decent, you're going to find it could be a bit of a slightly humbling experience, as if you need more humbling experiences in learning Chinese.
But the nice thing about this kind of like transcription practice, if you want to call it that, is that the app is infinitely patient. And, you can talk really slowly. You can say the same sentence over and over if you want, do whatever you want.
And if you have that transcription of whatever you said, this is now an opportunity to read through that. You can give that to AI and say, hey, what grammar problems am I having here? This is a transcription of, me speaking in Chinese. Help me out. Where can I fix this? So if you have a tutor or a teacher, they can help you with that. But if you don't, AI can help you. Or if you have a tutor, you can still have AI help you with that.
All right. So just to clarify, we're talking about two different situations. One could be practicing by yourself with just the app. The other could just be like recording yourself speaking Chinese in an actual interaction, whether it's a lesson or whether it's like on the streets of China and you're talking to a vendor or something, and you just happen to be holding your phone and recording the whole interaction.
Or you're on the streets of Chinatown.
Yes. Any of those places.
Anywhere you're speaking some sort of Chinese. You could be speaking with a tutor or teacher, a classmate. It doesn't matter. So any of these types of situations, this is a great opportunity. Record yourself speaking Chinese, and then later you can use these tools to transcribe and then evaluate, learn, correct, whatever. You can learn from your own experiences.
And by the way, you can do this in a slightly lower tech way. I used to do this a lot with my All-Set Learning clients, which is like, suppose they're going to, the fruit stand to buy some fruit, and they're doing it in Chinese. And the fruit stand guy always asks them some question and they never understand it. Well, if they record it, even if he has some like weird accent and the transcription software doesn't work, you can play that for your teacher or some other Chinese person, and then you can find out finally what is the guy always asking you that you don't understand.
Actually, John, that's a really good point. And I remember this in Shanghai. There was something on the subway, like the guy would say, or the voice would say, about getting on or getting off the subway, or that was coming to a stop. I don't exactly remember what it was. And I never understood it. And there was this one time I recorded it on my phone, and I sat with someone else and they helped me write out what it said. And I was like, oh, now I finally get it. It was really helpful. So you can do that for your own interactions. If you are interacting, you're speaking Chinese with somebody or whatever, and like there's that thing that they say, and you maybe you kind of get the idea of what they're saying, but you don't really know exactly. Excellent opportunity to record that and learn from it.
So hopefully you can come away from this podcast thinking about how any audio that you're learning from, that you're listening to, you can pretty easily transcribe that into electronic text now. And then being able to do that can open up a lot of other possibilities that you should be thinking about for your own studies.
Yeah, and the possibilities are frankly endless. A lot of the stuff, John, like we're talking about 10 years, no, not even 5 years ago, 3 years ago, this technology wasn't even good enough to do some of the stuff. Is when we're talking about AI, transcriptions and stuff. But it's there now, and it's only going to continue to get better and better. And this creates ripe opportunities for you to learn and improve your Chinese.
So use it, guys. Take advantage of it. You can definitely learn Chinese.
That's right. Reach your hand out, grasp that low-hanging fruit, and sink your teeth into that juicy Chinese learning opportunity.
Juicy transcriptions. All right.
Or something.
Thanks for listening to the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. I'm Jared Turner, co-founder of Mandarin Companion, alongside my co-host John Pasden, co-founder of Mandarin Companion, founder of All-Set Learning, the Chinese Grammar Wiki, and Sinosplice.com. If you liked today's episode, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend. It's the best way to help us reach more Chinese learners. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. We love hearing from you. Or come connect with us at mandarincompanion.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and for more tips, updates, and good times. Want a fun way to boost your Chinese? Grab a Mandarin Companion graded reader. Available on Amazon, Apple Books, Google Play, or wherever you get your books. Apologies to John Cena, who just ran out of time. The You Can Learn Chinese podcast is produced by myself, Jared Turner, and is edited by Jasper Chua. And of course, thanks to my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, John Pasden. See you next time.